Welcome, everybody. Session of mindful cardio here. Please have your cardio equipment and then another space where you can work with weights or a strap and your mat. And we'll go ahead and make a little switch here. Whoops, I got the wrong one on there. Let's get a different one on there. Mindful cardio. There we go. Now we've gotten to see all the banners. Let's get rid of some of them. How do I get rid of stay tuned? Why is that staying on there? Come on. Okay, if I go that and now to this. Good. All right, we got rid of stay tuned. I don't know. Okay, let's get started. I'll start my app. Maybe you've got an app that you like to use. Then I'll know exactly how long we're working. And so I thought we'd start just with a little bit of warm up in the core area, just from standing. So go ahead and find a spot. If you have if you're going to be getting on your bike, maybe just hold off a second. Find a place maybe where you've got a chair, or I can turn and use my wall here for a hand. And I'll do this from the side so you can see what I'm going to work with. So I'm going to shift my weight to one foot, and then let's shift to the other and just sense your balance, lifting one foot up, putting the other foot down. I'm going to come over here so you can see one foot up, one foot down, wiggling the feet. If your shoes are on, that's just fine for this. You can keep your shoes on for getting onto the bike or your rower. And then taking one knee up. Let's see if we can take that knee up as high as our hip, best we can. So I'll come down, I'll come back to where I'm a little more centered, and you can see I'm trying to bring that knee up here, and I'm just going to hold there. And I'm going to notice what's going on in the pelvis. So can I keep that knee nice and high? And see if I bring it up too much, do I start to tuck under, and see if I can come back to just your tail is dripping straight down, not starting to tuck. And even maybe it feels a little broad back here, like we're going to spread that out. So just notice how this is to hold the knee up. It gets to be a lot of work for that hip flexor, doesn't it? So then let's give ourselves a little help. Relax by, you could have your strap underneath here or just holding your leg up a little bit, and then turn that back on again. And this time we're going to take the toes out just a little and back under, toes out and back under, toes out and under, out and under. Again, I'm trying to keep that knee as high as I can without coming past 90, just right there. Good. 3, 2, 1. And bringing that leg back behind you. Find your toes, even through your shoes, back here on the mat or wherever they are on the floor. Nice straight leg. And we're going to lengthen a little bit in that front now, right where we had worked a lot. Doesn't have to be your biggest stretch. I'm just taking that leg back a little bit there, finding my toes, and I'm going to push down through the foot. Even though the heel is up, I think you can see that back there. Heel is up, just finding my toes, but a really straight leg. And then I'm going to keep everything else nice and pulled up here. And we've probably been here long enough to get a little lengthening going on without doing anything really excessive, right? We are just kind of seeing. Now I'm going to see how that feels right and left. Oh, I definitely sense a little bit of what I needed in that side of my body. I knew was having a little trouble today. Um, and it feels just a lot more collected, like we turned on the things we need to. All right, so other side, we're going to take that foot, take your weight to the other foot, bring your knee up, and we'll just explore. How does this feel? Am I tucking my tail just to bring the knee up? And maybe that knee is down a little bit then, so I can keep my pelvis in line. And I'm just going to hold, keeping that knee lifting best I can, keeping my tail spreading out back behind me, not tucking under to bring my knee up. That's just such a way to do it, right? If we say bring your knee up and we can't, then we're going to find a way to do it. But we're going to be mindful here. Can we keep the pelvis in neutral, lift the knee, really work? You might feel that in your inner thigh, the groin. It's your hip flexors that are helping hold that leg up. And then we gave ourselves a break. What's it feel like to hold the leg? And again, I could be using a strap if that's hard to get to with something under my leg here, but then maybe hanging on is gets to be a little more complicated. So just using your arm is just great. And then I'm going to go back to holding that leg up, and then we took the toes out and back under, out and back under the knee, out, under the knee, out, under the knee, continuing to notice as I get tired, I want to sort of take my tail underneath to keep my knee up. Doing the best you can here, even if the knee is down here. It's just nice if we can bring that knee up. Why we do this on our back sometimes. Good. 3, 2, 1. Got a little shaky there. Things are getting tired. I'm going to take that foot back behind me just enough to find a straight leg. So my feet, you can see where my legs are. I'm not that far apart. And I'm just going to push down through the ball of my foot. Maybe reach back through my heel a little bit, but nice straight leg. And then keep the rest of the torso nice and tall here. If you want to, you can lean back just a little, really strong in the core. And then stepping forward, check it out. See how you're feeling. All right, a little bit of wake up before we head into now. You can get on your bike or get in the rower, or if you're going to do step like I am here, just because I don't have a rower in this space. I'm really thinking I'm going to get one though, and I'm going to start working in that cardio capacity now. So we'll check out where heart rate is. I've got a nice timer here. Not sure it's going to give me my heart rate like I want. I have to find that perfect. I'm going to have a timer over here and my heart rate here. Perfect scenario for making classes. So last time we talked about um, sleep a little bit, and I want to talk about that again. But I also want to keep in mind that our primary focus here is to be present. So even though we're giving little tidbits to the brain, informational tidbits, the principal thing that we want to keep coming back to is that we're here, that we can feel the body, whatever exercise we're doing, there's some monotony to it. If we're rowing, it's the same action again and again. It's meditative in that way. If we're on the bike, the only thing you might do is go a little bit faster when we get to zone 2. Right now, just sort of warming everything up. And on the step, well, that is one place actually where it's kind of interesting because I'm going to keep changing what I'm doing, or I could keep going up and down the whole class as well. But I like to change it up a little bit. So I'm spending a little bit of my brain energy there. At any rate, let's settle into the body, maybe into the feet. noticing how the feet feel in the shoes, how the shoes feel when you press on a pedal or on the base of whatever you're working with, and noticing maybe your hands are in contact with something. Those of you that need a little bit more for the step, maybe you're holding weights. That feeling of the weights in the hands. Even closing my hands like this, noticing my fingers in the palms and checking in with your heart rate. And bringing it up a little bit. If you're still settled pretty well in that zone 1, see if you can start finding that edge of zone 2. Good. Last week we talked about sleep. Last session, used to doing weekly things. Why We Sleep, book by, oh dear, maybe I'm going to forget the gentleman's name. Matthew Walker, I want to say. Um, there are 3 podcasts on the Huberman Lab that are fairly long, but a lot of discussion about what I'm guessing is in his book. And there's also a website, Why We Sleep. That might be the name of the website, where you can do a master class. So if this is interesting for you, as it is for me, maybe checking into some of that. There's a lot to read there. If you subscribe, you can get even more information. Or if you like to read the book, kind of like to bring it in from different places. Just depends how much time I have for reading. Sometimes I have more time in the car to listen. So lots of driving still in my life. Noticing my heart rate, checking in, respiratory rate, sense of my environment. Maybe if I'm moving back and forth on a rower, I can feel that breeze. Maybe there's a breeze that comes off of the rower or off of the tires of the bike. Noticing that on my skin, that air on my skin. All of us can feel that air. So I'm going to give some more data, some more um, kind of points that the book makes in more detail about sleep. Then we'll get into a little more detail about things that help us know when to sleep and when to wake up. First bit of information: 2/3 of adults don't get adequate sleep. 2/3. That's a lot of people, and the millions of people that aren't getting adequate sleep. That's just the data on adults. What do you think about our kids? Think our kids are getting enough sleep? I don't have that data right here, but my guess would be no. It's really interesting, the work on sleep that I'm reading. And when I think about my life, and the differences that have happened in my life as far as the rhythm of my days and the rhythm of my kids' days and the expectations outside of that. That's not it. Probably is in the book. It's just my reflection. How are we doing on our heart rate? Are we getting right into that zone two? See if you can find yourself right in the middle of that zone two, or even up on the upper edge a little bit. Good to find those exercises where you can find a nice solid zone two for yourself. And then there's classes that Scott's done where we peak into that high intensity and then we come back to zone two. And when I play pickleball, I don't know. I'm probably putting on some junk miles. I might be in zone three. I'll have to check and see what today's data showed. I've learned I need to kind of watch how much of that I do. And if I'm getting in some high intensity, that's okay. I'm trying to level it out also, though, with during my week having enough zone two and enough of my Pilates practices, relaxation practices, meditation, so I'm sleeping okay. Sometimes too much of that high intensity stuff, and I'm too wired. I'm too wired for good sleep. I'm tired, but my sleep isn't quite as good. So, how are you doing with your zone right now? And how are you doing with your awareness of your body? Are you willing to drop in? Are you willing to drop in and see what's my breath doing? Am I starting to feel, a little warmer in my body? Temperature's gone up a little. And not that we even have to find out those things. It's not a job. Maybe it's as easy as, again, can I feel anything tactile with my hands? I got my hands on something. How about my feet in my shoes? Sensing that shoe or the socks. I got my socks and I've got the step that I'm stepping over. I get something tactile because there's little ribs in that. Good. The second point today, the shorter your sleep, the shorter your lifespan. That's kind of scary for me. Not that I've tried to not sleep, but there have been times when it's been harder for me. Lots of different reasons for that. Sometimes parenthood, we don't have a choice. We need to be up for our kids. Again, kind of back to that lifestyle. Some of that, right? Not so much when they're little babies. That's a little bit non-negotiable. But then even as they're growing up, some of their interests, for me, having a kid in theater really meant a lot of late nights. And I'm not a late night person. That's pretty clear. Luckily, I have a husband who is. He's definitely more on that later end of the day. And we'll talk more about that. There's quite a bit in the book about that, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Humans, number three, humans are the only species who deliberately deprive ourselves of sleep. Humans are the only species who deliberately deprive ourselves of those. When we're tired, we'll medicate, we'll do something, we'll keep the lights up to keep ourselves up. We have these magnificent brains, but then we do things like that, and it doesn't make much sense, does it? And to live that life where we're honoring the sleep, I think it takes a lot of willpower, a lot of um, intentionality. to say, I know I can live my best with the sleep, and I'm going to have to make some choices about that. And for me, that's not easy. My kids, my family, two performers in the family, that stuff happens at night, most of it. So I have to make choices. I have to try to figure out how to support them, and I enjoy supporting them and still get the sleep I need. Not too easy. So we had two-thirds of adults don't get enough sleep. The shorter our sleep, the shorter our lifespan. Humans, only species who deliberately deprive themselves of sleep. And I think this one touches on one that we did in part one, but the physical, mental impairments caused by one night of bad sleep dwarf those that are caused by exercise or food intake. So really amazing. I mean, that's just these statements say a lot about the power of sleep. Not getting enough sleep, much worse for us than not exercising or than eating not as well as we should. Let's check in. Sleep is the single most effective thing we can do to reset the brain and body. Sleep is the most effective. And maybe you've had good sleep in your life. You've had the ability to easily take naps, to easily go to sleep and stay asleep, to get your 8 hours and start the next day. You had good models of that and you didn't stray. Or maybe there could be a little bit of buttoning up, going back to a time in your life when you were getting good sleep. What was going on? What were the limits, maybe set by you or set by a lifestyle, society? What's one thing we could do? And we'll talk about that maybe in part three. Like, what are the things we can do to be in that better in that zone? One of the biggest things they talked about in the podcast was having a cool room. He said 68 degrees. I think I sleep in much cooler environments most of the year. My room's just one of my room at home doesn't have heating. I'm living in a basement right now, so the room I sleep in can be fairly chilly. It's actually really good for my sleep. A lot of temperature things happen in order for us to go to sleep. There's a lot of information about yawning. I thought that was really cool in the podcast. And that yawning, we sometimes say think is has to do with boredom or sleepiness. It's very interesting what it actually is doing, or at least what they think what they think it's doing. Back into our how we're doing. Starting to notice for myself this prolonged keeping going. Like I'm in that zone. Starting to feel a little moist, dewy. Maybe you're sweating. Everybody's going to react differently to zone two. Uh, Drop any intensity I might have in my face. I just be right here, spinning my legs around that and the bike, or pushing and pulling on the rower. Did some rowing yesterday. From the other side. Noticing each step, noticing each pull. Noticing the legs going around. On the bike, we have that opportunity to feel the push and the pull up if we've got the foot cage anyway, or you're buckled in, right? There's actually a pull up when we're biking. We could feel that whole circular rotation. Checking your heart rate, and checking, scanning the body for places where maybe you're holding on too tightly and you could let the big muscles do the work. Good. So there's two, can't read my writing. There's two ways to, two factors that tell us when we're going to be asleep and when we're going to be awake. One is our suprachiasmatic nucleus. Suprachiasmatic nucleus is the internal 24-hour clock, and adenosine, which we talked a little bit about in part one, which is a chemical that creates a sleep pressure. So, chemical builds up in our brain all day, and toward the end of our 24-hour clock, which is different for everybody, we start to have that sleep pressure that says, oh, time to go to sleep, and let the brain clear out the adenosine. Let the body clear out adenosine out of the brain. Simple terms. Person who does all the research can give you much more detail. Our human circadian rhythm, it's actually slightly longer than 24 hours. That's interesting. And another interesting fact, it's not dependent on sunlight. Not dependent on sunlight. That doesn't mean that sunlight isn't helpful for us. Getting outside, having that idea of, or that effect of nature on the body, of light coming in through the eyes, all of that. Again, have to kind of go to the source to say, why? Why doesn't, why aren't we dependent on sunlight? I thought we were. Turns out there's some information out there that someone might have thought at some time, and we're proving things differently. So I'll let you check into it and check in with your body. We have a core body temperature through that 24-hour cycle, goes up and down. You can see the graphs online. And there's something about that adenosine and the sleep pressure and the temperature. And then we talked about the temperature in your bedroom and how all those work together. So your body temperature needs to drop. I believe it needs to drop at night, but I'm going to leave it there. And we don't all have the same rhythm. So our rhythm is, we don't all have the same one. 40% of us have that wakefulness more in the morning. 30% more have that wakefulness more in the afternoon. And 30% fall in between. So he goes into great detail about these chronotypes. And they could be off by only a little, right? Some people really likes this wake up at 4 a.m. and they're going to bed by 8:30 to get their sleep. That's their best hours. Some people are 6 o'clock wake up and they're going to bed maybe 9:30. No, 9:30, 10. That's probably who I am. Some people would rather be 7:30, 8 o'clock wake up, and they're going to go to bed 11, 12, and so on. I think there were 5 or 6 chronotypes. And of course, this is advantageous. Through our evolution, having people wake up and go to bed at different times could protect the whole, right? Have people standing sentry for protection from wild animals for most of the night. Maybe there were 4 hours of vulnerability rather than a whole 8. Of course, now we don't have those same vulnerabilities at night, but our society has kind of put in place what a typical day is when the workday starts, not really paying attention to the fact that only 40% of us really like to be up in the morning and get going. So those owl type people better hope they like jobs where they can work later in the day. Let's settle in. Noticing your heart rate, go ahead and check on it. A few more minutes in our cardio. Good work so far. And we're going to take it into a little bit of strength training, a little bit of Pilates to end. And keep it going here keep it up into that low range 2 if I can. There are these chronotype quizzes online, by the way, if that's curious for you. And maybe you really know you've lived enough life, you've tried enough schedules, you're pretty sure what works well for you. But what would happen if half an hour earlier to bed made a huge difference? You were waking up on your own, no alarms, settling into the feet, in the shoes, wherever they are, noticing the arm movements, really settling into if you're rowing, noticing that pull, release. If your hands are on the bike, loosening the fingers up, but feeling the handlebars. Noticing if the arms are feeling tired and what could you do to be mindful of the arms in that biking movement. Relaxing your face. Good, good. And we're going to start to bring it down. You can slow it down a little bit. Plan to keep moving for 2 minutes. Is that right? 1 to 2 minutes. And then I'm going to move my step. I have a mat that's free. How do you like this information about sleep? Did you know most of it? Are you curious about more? And how are you sensing the body? What do you notice in the mind? Is the mind active? Is it fragmenting, trying to think of too many things at once, or fairly single minded to, oh, I can think about my feet for a few breaths. Oh, I can think about that sleep thing for a few breaths. Come back to noticing my feet, noticing my hands or my breath. You have all of these touch points. Good. And I'm going to call it. I'll take my equipment over here. Maybe you're taking your shoes off or not. Trying to think if it'll be completely necessary or not. Eh, you can decide as we go on. I'm going to grab my weights. And I'm still nice and warm. I'm going to add on to our practice here with some turning my toes out, call them goblet squats. You could have one weight heavy right here, or take two of them and keep them together. And you can follow my lead here. So I'm going to feel the feet, spread the toes out. And if you're in your shoes, that's okay. Just make sure you feel nice and steady. Weights will come down, bending the knees, taking the hips back. Good. Last one. Good. And coming up, walking the feet underneath you. Let's go ahead and work with our biceps a little bit. Feet in parallel. And I'm going to take them up to just this angle here, 90 degrees, and down. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now come from that 90 degrees and go up toward the shoulder. 7, 6, 5, only going to that 90. 4, 3, 2, 1. Now that whole range for 7, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Bring the feet wide again. All right. I'm going to come to a high, but still into my squat here. Not necessarily. You can come down lower if you'd like to. I just want to give myself a little work here for the legs. If you want to work a lot more, you come down even more and you can stay there. Good. Bring your hands up right near the shoulders. We're going to push up overhead. Good. Last 3, 2, 1. Nice. Bring those weights down. Step your feet underneath you. Okay. Now I'm going to take the weights down for a second. I'm going to pick them up in just a moment. But both of these activities will be same position. Feet a little bit wider than hip distance, bending at the hips, bending at the knees. Nice straight spine helping to support me here, my belly pulling in. Gonna take the arms out front. We're gonna take the arms back, elbows going wide and coming in, elbows and coming in, elbows. And notice I'm not trying to go as far as I can here. You can test that out gently, right? But try not to swing up and just crunch that upper back. See if you can notice that nice fluid movement. Shoulder blades out, shoulder blades coming in, shoulder blades out, shoulder blades sliding out, shoulder blades sliding toward the spine, shoulder blades. Can I move from that area? And also just kind of feeling my elbows at the same time. You could have light weights here. I've done enough this week that I'm just not going to use my heavier weights. Good. 3, 2, 1. Good. Coming up to standing. All right. I'm going to grab my weights. Oh, maybe I'll get a forward fold in while I'm here. Go ahead and forward fold as you go down to pick up your weights. Lots of bend in the knees if you'd like to let the back just really enjoy that forward motion. And then we'll find our way up, rolling up, back up to standing, bending the knees, bending at the hips. Bring your elbows in at your sides. I want to pretend that my elbows are magnetically attracted back there. So there's a little more of a squeeze factor here to keep my shoulder blades in line, keep my shoulder blades coming in toward the spine. And I'm going to press back, press. Careful on that swing forward. It can get very momentum-like. Push, slow it down. Push, slow it down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then coming up to stand. Good. How's that feel? All right. Let's add one more here with our weights. Why not? We've got them here. It's going to be from down in front, lift, lift, lift. Good. 4, 3, 2, 1. Nice. Okay. Let's come then down to the mat. Um, yeah, let's do this from hands and knees. So starting on your hands and knees, and then walk your hands out quite a bit so that when you come forward with your hips, your knees are going to be behind you. And if you need to, give yourself a little more padding for those knees. I've got 2 mats, 2 yoga mats. A Pilates mat would be fine, or a blanket, a little more padding for the knees if I need it. So now I'm in a plank, knee down plank. Hands are a little wider than the shoulders, maybe even fingertips. Sorry, last finger or a couple fingers are off the mat. That could be how wide the arms are. We're going to practice this lowering down, elbows out to the side, lower down to the floor. See if you can lower the hips, the belly, the torso, the chest, and the head all at the same time. You can keep your hands out here. We're going to have to energize, though, that upper back a little bit. Nose and chin will lift. Let the nose and chin lift. Notice how your belly goes down to the floor. Inhale. Now we're going to exhale. Pull that belly up away from the floor as you push with your hands to lift the chest, lift the hips, come up to the knees. Lowering down, slowly lowering. Everything coming together best you can. Plank position. Good. Inhale, nose and chin lift. Exhale, belly pulls up, hands push down. Come up to your knees. Lower down. Inhale, nose and chin lift. Even the chest lifts a little. Exhale. Press. Belly pulls up. Everything else pulls up. One more, let's lower. Good. Push. Coming to the knees, stretch back. You can round your spine as much as you'd like here, pulling the belly up into a child's pose that maybe keeps the hands grounding. If you'd like a little bit of reach for the shoulders, reach for the arms, and letting the head really just be free, head and neck. Walking the feet underneath you. To come to seated, good. Feet hip distance or as wide as your mat. If it feels like you're pulling a lot in the legs here, the knees can pop up. And we're going to take a little twist to one side. So go ahead and let yourself twist to one side. Notice how this feels. Take a breath in and then come back to center. And this time, as you go to your other side, notice if you can I keep an eye on what's happening in my hips, in my knees, or in my feet? Am I shifting to make this twist? So don't twist so much that we have to shift in the lower body. See if we can twist in the upper body, really around this rib cage is where the twist happens. Head can go along for the ride, looking way back behind you. Come back to the center. Good. Let's bring the arms up front, just kind of like zombie arms, I call them. Gonna pull back with your belly. Gonna even sit back a little bit on their tail. And then we're gonna reach so much forward with the head, with the hands, that we're gonna come forward a little bit on, we're not gonna be way back on on that tail anymore for spine stretch. Come on all the way back up. All right. Let's do a little bit of saw. We're going to take our twist. Your back arm is going to come palm upward. Front arm is going to reach out palm downward. But instead of folding as far as I can to reach my foot, I'm going to pull back with my belly on this side. I'm really going to resist and keep some of this action going back with this back hand and some of this action going forward. How do you do both? So that's the trick of this one. Can I do both? Knees can still be up. And then we're going to come to straight arms out. We're going to twist. We're going to take the arms, so the opposite back arm is up, palm upward, front arm reaching out, belly really helping to go back with that back arm, out to the side. Inhale and exhale, twist. Inhale, center. Exhale, twist. Inhale, center. And exhale, twist. Inhale, center. And exhale, twist. Good. Bringing the arms down, bringing the legs down. Let's bring the feet toward each other. Pop the knees up. Inhale up. Exhale. Get way up on those tippy tops of your sit bones. Come forward. Drape yourself forward, then lowering down with the arms, letting your spine round, letting your head tuck if that's comfortable. And you can either rest on those legs. If you've popped the knees up enough, you found that you're closer to those thighs. You can also walk the heels out and see about how it feels to have a little straighter legs. Taking a couple more breaths here. Good. And then coming up, you can either rest back on your back, or maybe you want to come to a seated position. You could sit on a chair, you could sit cross-legged. Find something that will be comfortable for just a couple of minutes. seated on a chair, seated on the floor, can you relax your legs? Just noticing if the legs can be relaxed. Then you'll know you're actually in a comfortable seated position and make any adjustments. Maybe that's sitting up on something, maybe it's lying back and saying, no, my chair's too far away. I'm just going to get that another time. And then if you're comfortable with it, closing the eyes or finding a place on the floor to look maybe 6 feet in front of you, 3 feet in front of you, something like that. Just a more bland. And again, noticing if the legs can be relaxed and taking a couple more breaths to scan the body. And then taking your attention to your face, your jaw. I mentioned this a few times during the practice, relaxing the face, relaxing the forehead, letting the forehead from the hairline down to the eyebrows, letting there be a soft letting go there. Letting the mouth and jaw release, letting the lower jaw be slack, and taking in a deeper breath, making any final observations. How did mindful cardio and strength practices, a little bit of Pilates, a little bit of everything here today, how did that land with you? Quality of the mind, presence of the body, and then opening your eyes. If you're resting on the floor, feel free to stay for a little longer. If you're ready to start, go into your next activities of your day, rolling to your side and pressing yourself up. If you're seated, making those adjustments, and we'll all head out into the rest of our day and our week. I hope to see you again here soon, and I hope you'll, let us know at Spring Pilates for Life if there's any comments. They will get them to me. If you know my email and my website, you can find me there. I do check my emails and I will get back to you. So it's also always nice to hear from folks that are watching the video library because I'm recording this in my beautiful home studio. And I don't know who's going to take the class. So anyway, have a great day. It was great to practice with you today. Have a good one.